What's going on, guys? It's Bromley at Empire Barbell, and today we're going to talk about what to do when you mess up your back. Real quick, guys, I want to talk about mentorship. I started the mentorship program on January 1st, and I'm rolling right around 8 or 9 people right now. There's a little bit of a turnover, so I still have some spots. So if anybody's interested, go ahead and DM me at Empire Barbell on Instagram. Remember, everything's personalized. Everything is made from the ground up. It is your program. It addresses your specific issues. So if you're interested, DM me. Now let's make 2020 the year to get you strong. Also, go ahead and check out our forum, empirebarbellforum.com. It's grown hugely. We got about 400 active members right now. Training logs. I keep my training log there. We have a spot for members media where you can upload videos to get form checks and critiques. You can get help with your programming, with your approach. We got a bunch of people asking questions. We have even more people helping out and giving back. And I try to be as active as I can on it. I want that to grow into a very vibrant, not just vibrant, but a reliable community where the information you're getting is good, vetted information, right? So go ahead and check out the forum. Look forward to seeing you guys there. Now, just like driving a car, the more miles you put on it, the more likely you are to get a flat tire. Now, that doesn't mean there aren't things you can do to try and avoid it and get a little more longevity out of your body before these hiccups happen. But it's good to be prepared because it really is a matter of time before you get some bumps and bruises. So I'm about 2 weeks out from the Arnold Amateur World Strongman Championships out in Columbus, Ohio. We fly out in about 9 days. So my training this last week, we went into my heaviest phase. And when you get so close to a contest, the hay is in the barn, as they say. Meaning the closer you get, really you're not going to get more of a training effect. You really just risk messing yourself up. So I always get really nervous the closer I get to a contest because it's really more about rest and recovery. So as I'm getting to my heaviest weeks, I do my biggest attempts. I cross my fingers that I'm going to be in one piece. And wouldn't you know, doing the contest weight on the circus dumbbell, I tweaked my back. So it's not as bad as it's been in the past, but some lack of movement. I was in a car for an hour and a half because we went to the Rhodes house, Donnie and Kristen Rhodes' place. Kristen Rhodes, one of the best strong women of all time, and she had a Rogue dumbbell that I needed to get my hands on because that's what we're using at the meet. So an hour and a half drive down to San Diego. I was a little stiff. I rushed my warm-ups, and as I was cycling through a couple of reps, something pulled. And all you really have to do as far as your back is concerned, if you just nick a nerve or if you just push against something the wrong way, it causes this inflammation effect. And it sucks. I mean, it's not bad, but it was noticeable, and it was something that could potentially impede my deadlift training, my moving event. So the question is, what do you do when you tweak your back? So these are the 5 things that I do religiously because I've had it happen in the past. These are the five things I do religiously every time this happens that improves the rate of recovery. It allows me to keep training, and it turns something that isn't optimal into something that's not devastating. So, thing number 1, when you tweak your back, do not stretch your back. This is probably the biggest mistake that people make. They actively try to stretch the area to get range or mobility as things tighten up. If you put a tear in a piece of paper, a piece of canvas, and then you start stretching it, putting it through range of motion, what happens? You're going to make the tear worse. The same rule applies. When you have all of this swelling and inflammation in this area and you start putting it through a range of motion, what happens? You're going to make the issue worse, okay? So because your body engages in this thing called guarding, when you get a back injury, everything gets tight, starts to swell up, and it's your body's way of trying to find stability to protect a damaged site. So your goal is to keep yourself from getting so tight that it's miserable so you can still function. And that means loosening up all the other areas. We call it a posterior chain for a reason. Everything's connected. So your glutes, your hammies, your hip flexors, your upper back, even your neck, and all the way down to your calves and ankles, keeping those areas mobile and stretched is going to go a long way to making sure you can get out of bed in the morning. But you do not want to stretch the actual injury site. So I always recommend spending a ton of time, glutes, hammies, upper back, calves, put them through a 15 or 20 minute stretch routine. You'll be amazed at how much better you can move throughout the day around that inflammation that's going to set in around your lower back. Thing number 2, double up on bracing work. Now, when you injure your lower back, you're going to be hyper aware of your posterior, and you're going to put most of your attention to doing things like moving your lower back or stretching the area or trying to keep it mobile. Understand that your spine is braced by this kind of equal and opposite tension that's created by your abdominals and your rectors and your obliques. And that's how you get this circumferential support. All right. So to kind of keep the stress off your lower back, you have to keep everything aligned properly. So as you go to sit down, as you go to bend over, as you go to move around, as you start to do prehab work and rehab work, really start to emphasize on the role of your abdominals. Part of the guarding that happens, everything getting really tight, your body trying to find that stability to keep the injury site secure and stable, it's gonna make you feel super tense, almost painfully tight throughout the deep abdominal muscles, the deep hip muscles. I'll feel my psoas get real tight. I'll be lying in bed and I'll feel those muscles start to lock up. And you'll find that the more you focus on that brace, the more you bring your abdominals in and you start to recruit those muscles appropriately, you're gonna have an easier time keeping your spine aligned, and you're gonna have an easier time going through a full range of motion as time goes on and you start to move around more and more. So throughout the day, as a warm-up to any activity you do, really start to double up on that bracing work. You're gonna find that your recovery time is gonna be a lot faster. Thing number 3, this is a big one. People tend to rely too much on heat, and the reason is heat makes you feel better. Heat drives blood into the area. It can help eliminate pain. It can help make you feel better, more confident when you start moving around. But the thing is, part of recovery is getting that inflammation to subside. So the inflammation that sets in as your body starts to guard, everything's getting tight and stable. As you keep driving blood in by applying heat, you're going to prolong that inflammation effect, and it's going to prolong the rate at which nutrients get delivered in and waste products get driven out. So before physical activity, absolutely. If you're going in and you're trying to touch some light RDLs with an empty barbell, if you're going to try to get yourself moving through a range of motion to try and expedite the recovery process, absolutely put a heating pad on for 10 minutes. You'll find you have an easier time in the gym. But whatever benefit you get out of driving blood into the muscles so you can move a little more easily, you're going to lose by prolonging that recovery time. When you're not about to be physically active, use ice, do contrast therapy, alternating extreme cold with extreme heat. What that does, that causes a flushing effect where the heat drives blood in and the cold causes blood to get shunted away from that site. So it, again, expedites the recovery process, and that's a valuable tool you can use. But do not rely too much on heat, because you will prolong the rate at which your body gets back to normal. Thing number 4, NSAIDs, non-steroidal anti-inflammatories. Those are very valuable if you use them sparingly. Just like the heat, they're a tool. They can be used appropriately to get you back to normal, but they're not something you want to become overly reliant on. So what I like to do with NSAIDs is I like to do short blitzes. So things like ibuprofen, actually, they can cause ulcers. They downregulate the thing that contributes to restoring the lining of your gut. So an over-reliance on NSAIDs, you can get problems. So a better alternative is to use them either sparingly before something like physical activity, or if the pain gets too extreme, or to use them in short blitzes. I like to do short blitzes. This was actually recommended to me by a doctor friend of mine who said if you keep the dose below a certain threshold and you keep it to just a couple days, you can get a big anti-inflammatory effect without risking any of the side effects or any of the problems if you were to do it long term. So he recommended doing 800 milligrams, which is a lot, 3 times a day for just a few days. If you do that too long, you will start to get some of those problems that are a result of over-reliance on NSAIDs. But if you use it in a short-term blitz, you can knock out a lot of the inflammation and you can help get yourself back to normal. But you want to be careful with NSAIDs. You don't want to abuse them. You don't want to rely on them. You don't want them to be a crutch, because that will mess you up down the road. And that actually brings me to point 5. The 5th thing you want to be very, very careful about is masking pain as a way of getting through the workouts. We spend so much time trying to work to get to these standards that it can be really psychologically devastating to have to take steps back to get yourself whole again before you start chasing numbers. It can be really tempting, especially if you find a few things that can kind of mask the pain just enough for you to get through the workout, to just put your head down and keep going under the guise of not losing a pound off of your total. So things that mask pain can be NSAIDs, they can be painkillers, opiate-based painkillers, they can be gear, equipment, doubling up on your belt with like a soft belt, and then making sure everything's wrapped, and maybe limiting your range of motion to a partial. It can be these ways where you can still handle load and maybe it feels a little better and you feel like it's progress because you can keep going. And all of that shit's really doing, it's subjecting you to a load before you're really healed and ready to handle the load. And that, again, is just going to prolong the recovery process. And it's going to increase the odds that something is going to go wrong and make that little problem worse. That's the worst thing. When you make that conscious decision to put your head down and just barrel through the pain, and then you take something small that might have only taken a few weeks to recover from, and you get a worse injury. And then you're left looking at yourself in the mirror like, well, that 2-week recovery time now is a 2-month recovery time because that little tweak I got, turned into a tendon tear, or it made the herniated disc, get pushed out more, and now I'm in more pain. So don't mask pain. Let your body give you the necessary feedback it needs to as to where you are in your recovery process so you don't push it unnecessarily. Like I said, these tweaks and bumps and bruises happen, just like driving a car, you get flat tires. So be smart about your recovery and then take the lesson from how you got the tweak in the first place. Most of the time, I think 90% of my injuries, I can pinpoint something specific and turn that into a lesson so I can be better prepared to not make that same dumbass mistake next time. This time around, I should have warmed up better and stretched because I sat in a car for an hour and a half. That's caused me issues in the past. I know that was a problem. I got overly eager and overly anxious and I rushed it. That's a lesson to learn. So, take notes, pay attention to what you do. Every time you go around, there should be a better approach, and you should find your recovery times better, or you should be able to go longer without injuries in the first place because you're taking a smarter approach. So those are my 5 tips to getting over a little back twinge. Obviously, worse injuries are going to require more severe intervention. So if things get so bad, don't hesitate to contact a doctor. Don't hesitate to find a specialist that'll straighten you out. Keeping yourself in one piece, that's most of the battle. So thanks for listening. Leave your comments in the comment box and I will respond to them. Until next time, this is Bromley at Empire Barbell. I'll see you.